Tonight, on Remote Cabin Radio, we find ourselves once again drawn into the shadows of the Pacific Northwest, exploring another of its more mysterious and chilling tales. For nearly a century, the dense forests and rugged mountains of Vancouver Island have harbored a story of profound intrigue and terror. This is the story of Muchalat Harry, a daring trapper from the Nootka tribe whose encounter with the elusive Bigfoot would forever alter his life. Adapted from Peter Byrne's groundbreaking 1976 book, The Search for Bigfoot, Monster, Myth, or Man, we delve into the spine-tingling events that Harry endured and unravel the profound mystery surrounding this colossal creature. Byrne, a distinguished tracker of the Himalayan Yeti and former big-game hunter, offers compelling evidence for the existence of such beings. From his base in the Dalles, Oregon, Byrne's Bigfoot Information Center has investigated countless sightings and incidents across the Pacific Northwest. Yet none may be as haunting as the story we are about to reveal. The Nootka, also known as the Nuu-chah-nulth, have a rich history intertwined with the rugged beauty of Vancouver Island's west coast. This region, characterized by dense temperate rainforests, rocky coastlines, and numerous inlets and bays, has been home to the Nootka for thousands of years. Their deep spiritual connection to the land and sea is reflected in their complex societies, intricate art forms, and rich oral traditions. The Nootka thrived on the abundant marine and forest resources of their territory. Their lives changed dramatically with the arrival of European explorers in the late 18th century. Captain James Cook was one of the first Europeans to make contact with the Nootka in 1778, followed by Spanish explorers, including Don Juan Francisco de la Bodega, who established a base at Nootka Sound. The Nootka Convention of 1790 resolved territorial disputes between Spain and Britain, leading to an increased British presence in the area. In 1843, the Hudson's Bay Company established Fort Victoria on Vancouver Island, which became a key trading post. By 1849, they leased the entire island, marking it a period of significant change for the indigenous peoples, including the Nootka. European diseases, trade, and settlement had profound impacts on their way of life. Among the rich history of Nootka lore is the legend of the Bukwas, often referred to as the Wild Man or Sasquatch. This creature is typically described as a large, hairy, human-like being that inhabits the deep forests and remote areas of their territory. The Bukwas is depicted as a solitary figure who lives in the forest and is associated with the spirit world. He is believed to have the ability to lure people into the forest, where they might become lost or disoriented. Those who encounter Bukwas are said to be at risk of being taken to the spirit world. Some stories portray him as a guardian of the forest, protecting the natural world from those who would harm it. This aligns with the Nootka's deep respect for nature and their belief in the interconnectedness of all living things. He is sometimes believed to have shape-shifting abilities, allowing him to appear as different animals, or even as a human. This aspect of the lore emphasizes the mysterious and elusive nature of the creature. These stories serve multiple purposes within Nootka culture, including carrying moral lessons, reinforcing cultural identity, and reflecting spiritual beliefs. As we delve into the heart of the story, we turn to 1928, when Muchalat Harry, a proud and fearless trapper of the Nootka tribe, lived in the remote settlement of Nootka. Unlike many of his fellow tribesmen, Harry ventured deep into the dark forests alone. The dense woodlands of Vancouver Island were seen as sacred yet perilous places where few dared tread. To the Nootka people, these forests were not just home to wild animals, but also to the enigmatic Bigfoot. Father Anthony Terha, a missionary priest living at Nootka, recounted this tale to Peter Byrne many years later. Father Anthony, beloved by the local people for his kindness and dedication, described Harry as a man of great physical strength and courage, a rarity even among the hardiest of his people. Harry regularly ventured into the thick wilderness by himself, something few others dared to do. The woods, after all, were the territory of the Bigfoot. Late one autumn, Muchalat Harry embarked on what he expected to be a routine trapping expedition. His plan was simple: to spend the winter months in his favorite hunting area along the Conuma River, at the head of Klupana Inlet. He loaded his canoe with traps and supplies, paddling from Nootka to the mouth of the Conuma. After caching his canoe, he trekked about 12 miles inland and set up a base camp near a series of rocky bluffs. There, he built himself a lean-to and began laying out his trap line. The forest was thick with shadow and silence, perfect for his work, or so he thought. But the stillness of the forest would soon be shattered by a nightmarish encounter. One cold night, as Harry lay wrapped in his blankets, dressed only in his underwear, he was jolted from his sleep. Before he could fully comprehend what was happening, he was seized by a massive, powerful figure. A giant male Bigfoot had grabbed him and was carrying him off into the dense forest. Imagine Harry's terror. Barely clothed, disoriented and helpless, he was carried for what felt like miles into the dark woods. When daylight finally broke, Harry found himself at the edge of a strange camp nestled beneath a high rock shelf. He was surrounded by over 20 Bigfoot, males, females, and even young ones. They stood around him in a semicircle, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something Harry couldn't quite define. As he sat huddled against the rock, Harry's fear deepened. All around the camp were scattered bones, bleached and broken. Panic surged through him. Surely, he thought, he was to be the next meal for these towering creatures. Yet despite his mounting terror, the Bigfoot did not harm him. They examined him cautiously, occasionally stepping forward to prod him, as if puzzled by his appearance. At one point, several of the creatures pulled at his woolen underwear, apparently confused by the loose skin. Harry sat frozen, too scared to move, fearing that any sudden action might provoke them into violence. Hours passed. Harry's thoughts were consumed by a single idea: escape. As the day wore on, the creatures seemed to lose interest in him. Many wandered away, possibly to forage for food, leaving Harry with his chance. Summoning every ounce of strength and will, he bolted from the camp, fleeing through the forest, heedless of the branches that whipped his face and body. He ran for miles, desperate to reach his canoe at the mouth of the Conuma. Blinded by fear, Harry bypassed his own camp, his mind focused solely on escape. He ran the entire 12 miles, barefoot and barely dressed, until he finally reached the water. There, he found his canoe, hidden where he had left it. With trembling hands, he pushed off into the icy waters and paddled for his life. Meanwhile, back in Nootka, Father Anthony and his fellow missionaries were sound asleep. It was well past midnight when they were awakened by wild cries echoing across the inlet. The village was silent, save for the desperate shouts coming from the direction of the water. The priest and others rushed down to the shoreline, where they found Muchalat Harry, nearly frozen, exhausted, and clad only in his torn, wet underwear. He had paddled his canoe nearly 45 miles through the night. Father Anthony and his companions brought Harry ashore, wrapped him in blankets, and carried him up to the mission. Over the next 3 weeks, they nursed him back to health. His body slowly healed, but the mental scars ran far deeper. During that time, Harry's hair turned completely white, a vivid reminder of the trauma he had endured. Eventually, the full story emerged, though at first, Harry would speak to no one. When he did finally recount the experience to Father Anthony, the priest was both fascinated and horrified. When Harry had regained his strength, he was asked if he would return to the Conuma to retrieve his belongings, his trapline, his cooking gear, and most importantly, his rifle. In 1928, such possessions were invaluable to a trapper. Yet Harry refused. He never again set foot in those woods. He would rather lose everything than risk another encounter with the creatures that had carried him off into the night. Peter Byrne, in his search for Bigfoot, was so captivated by this story that years later he retraced Harry's steps. In 1972, Byrne visited the Conuma River, now accessible by logging roads. He camped there for several days, exploring the wilderness and trying to imagine where Harry's fateful lean-to had stood. Although he found no evidence of Bigfoot or Harry's camp, Byrne was struck by how unchanged the landscape was. The moss-covered banks, the crystal-clear waters of the Conuma, the silent forest, everything was as it must have been the night Harry was taken. The story of Muchalat Harry stands out among the many intriguing tales in Peter Byrne's The Search for Bigfoot. Filled with eerie moments and strange encounters, it highlights the enigmatic nature of these elusive beings. Although Harry was taken and held against his will, he emerged unscathed. If the Sasquatch had truly intended harm, they likely would have. This unsettling encounter not only underscores their mysterious nature, but also hints at a deeper complexity behind these legendary beings. Reflecting on Harry's ordeal prompts us to consider how we might react if we encountered a mysterious, non-threatening being in the woods. Would we approach it with respect and curiosity, or would fear and aggression prevail? The parallels between modern human and Sasquatch behavior invite us to examine our own responses to the unknown. Could these creatures be a lost branch of humanity, living just out of reach and waiting to step from legend into our reality? As we close tonight's episode, we are left wondering if Muchalat Harry's encounter was a glimpse into a hidden world that remains just beyond our grasp. The dense forests of the Pacific Northwest continue to guard their secrets closely. While we may never fully uncover the truth of what transpired, the mystery endures. Stay tuned for more true, amazing stories. This is Remote Cabin Radio, where history and mystery come alive.